I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much, Dickiness Okongbasi, you and your husband, the wonderful job you're doing. I pray God's blessings upon you more and more. In Jesus' mighty name, I'm honored and privileged to be here. Navigating the realities of married life is what this is all about. Okay, so we're looking at covenant marriage, my expectations, my reality, my expectations, my reality. And I said, this is a very, very interesting topic, very interesting. In life generally, every single person, everyone has expectations regarding virtually every undertaking, regarding everything that they embark upon to do. For instance, you are here tonight on this call. You do have an expectation for tuning into this meeting today. You definitely do. That's how it works in life. All right. So in the same way, marital satisfaction rises and falls on expectations. Marital satisfaction rises and falls on expectations. So when two individuals decide to step into marriage, they both have expectations in different areas and different aspects of married life. So everyone does have certain expectations. That's just stating the obvious. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, what is marital expectations? When you talk about marital expectations, you're talking about pre-existing beliefs that people have about their marriage, pre-existing beliefs that people have about their marriage, about their relationship, since there are singles here as well. You know, their relationship with their spouses or with their husbands or wives to be. You know, pre-existing beliefs about the roles they play, pre-existing beliefs about the roles a husband is supposed to play, who a wife is supposed to be in marriage, you know, the family and all of that. And all of these things really just, it's like an pre-installed program that comes with everyone into the marriage relationship. Now, what are the determinants of expectations? What are the things that really determine marital expectations? Marriage expectations, or marital expectations, if you like, are formed largely by past experiences, cultural influences, and, just different family dynamics, as well as our own personal desires as unique individuals. So you talk about past experiences, things that have happened in your past. You talk about cultural differences, the kind of background that you've had, where you grew up, and the family dynamics, that you were exposed to growing up, and all that, and your own personal desires as a person. So when we get married, we bring with us a complex set of these expectations, complex, very complex in some cases. And these expectations are really just unique to us as individuals. Now, some of these expectations are conscious. So they are things that we deliberately and consciously just kind of, engage in. And some of them are subconscious. Some of them are just lurking there in our subconscious minds and drive the things we do in our marriages. Okay, so in some cases, our expectations might align perfectly with our partner's expectations, which is very beautiful, but it's inevitable that at some point in time, there will be a clash, because expectations do differ a whole lot. So we come into marriage with expectations that were determined by our preconceived, programmed outlook. Preconceived, programmed outlook. And I hope somebody gets that and, really just begins to question the things that you consider very important and paramount in the relationship. Begin to question them and really look at the genesis of these things, because it will help you. Okay, so over time, we develop mindsets and ideas about how you would want to be treated by your spouse, how both of you would relate in a marriage institution, who will do what, and all like that. These mindsets develop over time. You have expectations and so on and so forth. Now look at it. When you see any couple getting married, look at their wedding videos, look at their wedding pictures. Everyone is smiling, they're excited. Why do you think they are smiling and excited? Why do you think they are dancing so much and being so happy? It's because they have expectations. They have expectations. That's what's driving all that excitement, all the adrenaline highs and all of that, So, but unfortunately, though, for a lot of people, not too long after that, then they start singing a different tune, and then it's like, oh, what's happening, this and that, and all of that is because of unmet expectations. Research findings have shown that almost half of all divorced couples said unmet expectations contributed to their marriages ending. Unmet expectations. All right, so I know that dashed expectations of marriage is a real thing. It is a real thing. From the experiences of people that have had the privilege of working with over the years and knowing over the years, I know that dashed expectations in marriage is a real thing, and that births frustration, it births hurts and the likes, and couples really just begin to think that their spouses don't care or that their spouses do not love them. I mean, just somewhere in between that, like, oh, he doesn't care, she doesn't care, or he doesn't love me, or she doesn't love me. So these things are very real. Now, it's okay to have expectations. You should have expectations because they give you hope for a fulfilling and enjoyable relationship. So it's okay to have expectations. Let me just preempt you in case someone wants to ask me that later on. It's all right. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants a good relationship. You want to embark on a venture. You want to enjoy. You want to, gain the most out of it and really, really be happy. I do not think anybody gets married with the desire of not being happy or with the desire of not enjoying the relationship. So having expectations for marriage is great. It's wonderful. The problem, however, is that some of those expectations just border on being not sensible. They're not sensible. They are unworkable. They are unrealistic for the most part. Many of these our expectations are just unworkable, they are unrealistic, they are just not sensible. Now, since I've said that it's important, it's okay to have expectations, let me give examples of some realistic expectations to have. All right? These are realistic expectations to have in the marriage institution. For example, it's okay to expect that you will be committed to each other. That's a good expectation. That's a correct expectation. That's how it's meant to be. It's okay that I'm expecting that I'll get married and that I'll be committed to my spouse. My spouse will be committed to me as well. It's okay to also have the expectation that we will trust each other. I mean, what is a marriage? What's a relationship where there's no trust? That's the foundational brick there. So it's okay to expect that we'll trust each other. It's okay that we should expect to be there for each other. My husband should be there for me. I should be there for my husband, and so on and so forth. It's okay to also expect that you will support each other's dreams. It's okay. It's an okay expectation that he will support my dreams. I will support his dreams and his goals, his aspirations in life and stuff like that. It's also okay to be able to expect that we would resolve issues amicably, issues that may arise, that we would handle them in the right manner and be able to get along. It's okay to expect that. It's okay to expect that I'll be sexually fulfilled in marriage. It's an okay expectation. So these are some of the expectations that are all right in marriage. So you go into it and you are expecting that things will work because this is a relationship that is meant to bring value and add value to your life. Okay, so these are some of those healthy, desirable expectations that we can have in marriage. But the problem is that there's often a very fine line, very fine, thin line between great expectations and unrealistic, unworkable expectations. Unrealistic expectations are the things that really just make marital interactions problematic for the most part. Make marital interactions really just problematic. And you know one thing, the disturbing thing about these unrealistic expectations is that for the most part, they are often unspoken and unexpressed. That's the thing. That's the disturbing thing. They are mostly unspoken and unexpressed because the other person is assuming that if he loves me, shouldn't he know that? If she really is my wife, if she cares about me, shouldn't she know that? They're unspoken, they are unexpressed. That's the disturbing thing. about unrealistic expectations. So you just expect your husband or your wife to just get you, to just be able to read your mind. And when you blink 2 times, you should know that it means this. When you blink 3 times, you should know that it means that. And then when you roll your eyes, you should be able to read meanings into that and be able to say, oh, okay, from that eye roll and from those steps, then it means that he needs this, she needs that. This is what they need per time. And oh, come on. Come off it. All right, so let's go on. Now, marital expectations fall under 2 main categories. There's the minor category, and then there's the major category. The minor categories are really not the deal breakers, okay? The minor categories are not the main issues, okay? These are the areas where you communicate your desires, but often after a while, you learn to overlook some of those things because they don't, like they say, they don't affect the price of rice in the market. So they're not things that you really want to camp around and so on and so forth. So you learn to overlook these things over time. You learn to compromise and overlook them. So at the end of the day, everything can't be a big deal. Everything can't be a big deal. Everything shouldn't be a big deal. So, for example, he loves to leave the tap running while brushing his teeth versus you wanting to conserve water. And that one, there's a practical example of that in my own marriage. Let me leave it at that for now. Or leaving the lights on during the day, leaving their shoes in the living room, always wanting to sit in the same spot in church every time, things like that, minor irritations, minor categories, things that, okay, all right. This one, after a while, you just learn to overlook those things. Those are not the deal breakers. The deal breakers, the real issue really does lie with the major expectations that we have in marriage. Unmet expectations in the major category will lead to conflict every time, every single time. Now, there are 2 things that drive your major expectations, since that's the main thing, that's the real deal breaker, right? Okay, so 2 things that really drive your expectations are, number 1, your pain, and number 2, your values. Number 1, your pain points, and then number 2, your values. Examples of your pain, for instance, would be like if you were raised in a hostile environment, for instance, in an environment that was, basically just hostile, where there was a lot of fights, a lot of rancor, and you grew up feeling very, very unsafe. That pain inside of you, remember, we talked about where expectations really come from, and that, it's like a program that had been, downloaded and preset inside of you ahead of time. So if you grew up in that kind of environment, you would naturally want a marriage where there's no tension. You would want a marriage where, look, we love each other, there should be no tension. So at the slightest sign that there's any kind of tension at all, you get very unsettled, because it's like, oh my God, it's like it's reminding you of where you are coming from, something that you found really undesirable. Or maybe you grew up in an environment, or you over time have been exposed to situations where you were criticized a lot. You receive a lot of criticism, maybe from loved ones, from your primary caregivers, your parents or whoever raised you and stuff like that. So you would naturally want a situation where you'll get married and you and your spouse will just flow, because you do not just want to be criticized. And those are the kind of people, for example, who do not take criticism very easily, because once even if you mean well and you're being genuine, what they are hearing is you are no good, you are very bad, you'll never be great, you'll never be good, and that's not what the spouse really means, So you want a situation where you're agreeable, where you can flow, where you can talk freely without being criticized, because you dread it. If you experienced abandonment, if you experienced neglect and so on and so forth, you would want a situation where in your marriage, your spouse will be always present. They will be always present. So you see, those are the ones who expect that, you should, even if you'll be 1 minute late, you should park the car on the road somewhere and say, I'll be late. I'll be home 30 seconds late because they want you to be there for them and be present all of the time. You see, so the difference between a regular expectation and one that is driven by pain, the difference between a normal, just regular expectation and one that is driven by pain is that when the expectation goes unmet, it opens a past wound. It's like a wound that's trying to heal and you're poking at it. It opens a past wound, making it more painful than it normally would be. That's the thing about the main difference between a regular expectation and one that is driven by pain. The other one, remember, I said two main things, two main drivers of your expectations are your pain and your values. Example of values, for instance, maybe you are someone who grew up in an environment where, family is first. Everything was orderly, everything centered around the family, all the time. You were there for each other, you were there for one another, and so on and so forth. You would naturally gravitate towards a relationship where family is priority. So you get married to someone and you want to spend Christmas with family all the time, and they're like, no, I want a solo trip this year. I want to go to Mexico. And you're like, what? What will I be doing in Mexico when I should be in the village with my family? That kind of thing. Maybe you grew up in a home where the father figure was really the father figure. He was very protective. He was the one who locked the doors at night. He was the one who looked after everything at night and made sure everyone was safe. Now you get married, you are expecting that that's what the man should do too. I mean, normal. You are the man figure. Or maybe you grew up in a home where whenever you came back from school, your mom was always at home. That's the kind of job she had. So you grew up knowing that, okay, mom stays at home and then gives us food where we come from. You naturally would gravitate towards that as well. In your mind, in your expectation, you would think that as a man, for instance, that it's normal for the woman to be there for the children all of the time, eating on the dining table versus eating on the floor or eating in the bedroom, solitude versus aloneness or versus wanting to be around people. These are just some of the values, the things you hold dear, the things that are the most important to you as a person, which have come as a result of experience and all the other things that have gone on in your life. So the things you value the most in life will drive the expectations you have of your spouse in your marriage. The things that you value the most in life will drive the expectations you have of your spouse in marriage. All right. Now, I talked about unrealistic, unworkable expectations earlier on. Let me mention a few of them. Number one, for example, very unrealistic expectation that because you love each other, you would always treat each other right. No. Don't expect that your spouse will always treat you right. Now, that does not mean that they will deliberately just go out of their way to want to be mean to you. It's because they are imperfect, because they are human like yourself. So there will be times when they will do things that would rub you the wrong way. They would hurt you sometimes, not because they want to intentionally, but because they are human. Another unrealistic one is that because you married right, you will never disagree or argue. Hello. You'll never disagree. So once he's saying, praise the Lord, you just be shouting amen in the other room. And then when he says amen, you say amen. This one, I agree. Please. That your spouse will always just agree with your point of view, especially because maybe when you were dating, when you were cutting, it was like, oh my God, you're so smart. Oh my God, that's this thing you said, that's exactly what I had in mind. Oh my God. I mean, like, what? So you think that once you get married, then because you love each other, so that you'll never disagree, you never argue. That's not it. That is not it at all. It's impossible for someone to always agree with your perspective all of the time. Another one is closely related to the one I just mentioned, all right, that you would always be in agreement over issues. That's not possible. You have your own mindsets. They have their own mindset, their own ideas, their own, thoughts regarding various issues. And another one is that your spouse will always know and understand how you're feeling. I think I alluded to that a little earlier on, that your spouse would always know and understand how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and what is going on with you. Please, 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 please. That's putting a whole lot of burden on your spouse. They won't always know what's going on with you. They won't always understand what's going on with you. They also have issues of their own. So, I mean, the world doesn't revolve around you. So don't assume that they should know. If you need something, say something. That's it. If you need something, say something. Okay, that your spouse will never hurt you, never disappoint you, never let you down. I think I've talked about that. Yeah, so let's go on. I was giving examples of unrealistic expectations earlier on, but I need to do a quick disclaimer here. I am in no way referring to abuse of any kind. I'm not referring to abuse here. I'm not saying tolerate abuse from your partner. I'm not saying you should tolerate the violation of your boundaries at all. You must never condone abuse. No. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, any kind of abuse where your spouse is knowingly, intentionally hurting you or hurting your children or endangering your physical and mental health. Don't condone that. That's not what we're referring to here. If this is happening to you, please, 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 please speak out, seek help, or run for your life. Dead men don't tell tales. Dead men don't tell tales. All right. Okay, then the last one, the unrealistic expectations, the last one, that's the mother of them all. The mother of them all, the biggest unrealistic expectation, marital expectation here, is expecting your spouse to make you happy. Expecting your spouse to make you happy. How? See, you cannot control your spouse's happiness, and they cannot control yours too. So you see, what happens is that if we put pressure on our spouses for them to be the sole provider of our happiness, that pressure will eventually lead to serious issues and just cause damage down the line. You will always be looking for something from your spouse that he or she cannot provide enough of. You always be just looking for something from them because you think that they are the ones who should make you happy. They'll never be able to satisfy you. And this will leave you in a state of constant frustration because your eyes are on them to be the one who will make you happy. So that's what you see in a lot of marriages. So each time the partner sneezes, they catch a cold. Because everything is dependent on when he's high, me too, I'm this, when she's low, me too, I'm like that. No. So putting that pressure on them is tantamount to putting an unreasonable weight on their shoulders. A sense of inadequacy and failure will eventually accompany that kind of pressure, you know. So why do we think that our spouses should be the ones to be our source of happiness? And I'm challenging you at this point. Begin to ask yourself, why do I think that my spouse should be the one providing my happiness? Usually these kinds of expectations come from something in your past, maybe some kind of unmet need in your past that you've experienced earlier in life and you haven't healed from that. Or maybe it just comes from our culture, you know, just that's what everybody says from your circle of friends, or even social media. It is well with social media and us in Jesus' name. Okay, so recognize the source of it so that you can take the pressure of your spouse to be the one fixing things and making you happy and making everything all right. They are not God. See, your spouse can never fulfill all your expectations, satisfy all your longings, or meet all your needs. Please write that down. Your spouse can never fulfill all your expectations, satisfy all your longings, or meet all your needs. They were never created to. They were never created to. Only God can be your everything. Only God can be your everything. Of course, there are basic things that you must never overlook. There are basic things that must be in place. But when it comes to your source of happiness, your source of joy and contentment, only God can be that to you, not a man, not a woman. You see, I love this scripture so very much. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 5. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 5. It says, our sufficiency is of God. Oh, I can't tell you how much this scripture has blessed my life over the years. Not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything as of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God. Our adequacy is of God. Only God is the source of true joy and contentment, not a spouse. Stop expecting your husband or your wife to be to you what only God can be to you. Let the pressures of life and the pressures of marriage drive you to Him. Let those pressures drive you to God. Let them drive you to God. He will remove the source of that pressure. When He sees that you have learned to trust Him, then He will remove the source of that pressure. Trust Him. Seek His face. Ephesians 2:14. I love this scripture too. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 14. It said, for He is our peace. Oh my God. Who has made both one and has broken down the middle wall of partition between us. He is our peace. Where you are seated or wherever, whatever position you're adopting, can you just shut your eyes for a moment and say, He is my peace. God is my peace. Jesus is my peace. Say
Jesus is my peace.
He's my peace. He is my peace. He is my peace. He is my peace. He is my peace. Okay, let me begin to round off now very quickly. I think my time is virtually up. How do we then navigate the realities of married life? Balance things out. Find a happy medium that works for both of you. Balance things out. So just be self-aware. Take heed to yourself. What's going on with me? How is my relationship with myself? Be self-aware. That's the bottom line here. And then understand that people come in loaves, not slices. Loaves of bread, not slices of bread. People come in loaves, not slices. So you cannot pick and choose, but you can learn how to handle them in order to bring out the best in them. And that's something for another day. Learning how to handle them, so in order to bring out the best in them. So love your spouse for who they are, not for who you want them to be. Love her, love him for who he is, for who she is, not for who you want them to be. You have to also learn to communicate regarding what you expect. It won't be a one-time conversation. I need to let you know that, because expectations change with the seasons of marriage. Your expectations change because marriage goes through different seasons, and with each season comes a different set of expectations. So there will have to be ongoing communication between the two of you. Treat your spouse based on who you are, not based on who they are. Treat your spouse based on who you are, not based on who they are. Treat them based on who you are every time, no matter what is happening. Treat them based on who you are, not based on who they are. All right? So I said, remember, men and women are wired differently. So we come into marriage, all kinds of expectations and all of that and stuff. But bottom line, I'm a man. Bottom line, I'm a woman. And my own, I'm wired differently from my spouse, from my partner, and so on and so forth. And so we need to bear that in mind and just moderate your expectations from each other. Be vulnerable. That's all I'm trying to say. Let your husband know, let your wife know, I need you. I need you. I need help. I miss us being able to pray together. I miss the times where we really were connecting on a deeper level. Don't wait for him to be the one to come and ask you. Don't wait for her to be the one to. You be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Don't put up the attitude, the silent treatment, and then you're going expecting them to know that you are not happy. And then they tell you one thing, you give them one word answer, they send you a message, and then you see it and you ignore it until 10 hours later. Then you give an emoji, you respond by saying, okay, or you put K, and all that, because you want him to know that you are not happy. Omo, come off that thing. Grow up, please. Grow up. Grow up. This life is sweet. Enjoy your life. Time is going. This is your life going on. No, it's not rehearsal. Sit down and just take responsibility for your life. Ask. Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Be clear about your needs. Be very clear. I need this. I expect this. Please help with this. Be vulnerable. And I think I want to emphasize this to women especially, because many times they are the ones who want to behave like I'm okay, I'm this and that. And okay, My time is up, but I wanted to tell singles, before you get married, please sit down by yourself, make a list of your own expectations that you have for your spouse, every area, house chores, this one, that one, family, household cleanliness, jobs, career, finances, roles in marriage. Have all those expectations listed out, and then have this discussion with your partner also. My time is up. Let me just stop. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I wish we had more time, but there's a hard stop at 4, and I wish we had more time. Maybe we should extend the time more next time. But I need the questions are already rolling in. Uh, Thank you so much, Ma. I really, really enjoyed it. And
Thank you.
there are many. We may think that we know. With time in marriage,
Mm,
you think you know, but this kind
mm,
of expose kind of brings you back to reality. That really
mm.
what you think it's really somebody asked a question, so maybe I should just start from that question.
Okay.
So the person's Mushi, me, I hope I don't want to spoil your name. So Mushi is fine. If you are always the party voicing your expectations all the time, it won't it appear like your own is too much? Like every time you're the one talking, every time you're always the one telling them you want this, you want that. Is that
Okay.
at what point do
All
you
right.
draw the line?
So the antidote to that, of course, I didn't have enough time to go into that, is to also be mindful of your spouse's expectations. Be interested in meeting their own needs. Ask them as well, and put in concerted effort into meeting their own needs. So it won't always be about you all the time. There will be times when you deliberately just even hunt for information from them, because it's important to you that they are also having their needs met. That's how to balance it out.
Thank you, ma'am. If you have a question, you can always put it in the chat box, or you can unmute and ask. This is the time to ask your questions while we're waiting. Yeah, okay. Um, while we're waiting for those questions to start coming in, I wanted to ask a very funny question. Okay.
Yes.
If you are saying don't expect too much, this is that, I mean, manage your expectation. I hear you. There are the minor ones, there are the major ones. But how how do you, I mean, when we get married, there are things
Can I
basic.
interrupt you? Can I interrupt you a little? I saw a question popping up. What if your partner is a narcissist?
Mm.
So how did who gave the diagnosis? Who diagnosed them and said they were a narcissist? So maybe you should go talk to the person who who diagnosed them and all that. But of course, this platform is not the place where we can even go in depth
Mm.
regarding some of these issues. And I'm not in any way even just dismissing what may be your perception and all that. But there's no way I can even delve into that in the little time that we have.
Yeah.
Please seek help, talk to someone around you that can help with that. But don't close your mind. We are believers. Don't close your mind and say, oh, case closed, this person, I'm married to this kind of person and this and that. I believe that there are ways by which we can prevail in marriage, especially when we prevail with God first. Okay, sorry to have interrupted you. I saw the question coming in, so
No, it's a very
yeah.
good question. Somebody asked and said, how do you tackle rape in marriage? You know,
Yes.
and he or she took it off me, because that seems to be the next topic we're going to be dealing in the next series.
Okay,
But
rape.
just a quick one, like, how do you tackle rape in marriage? Rape in marriage.
Rape in marriage. Okay, I would have said I don't like to assume anything. That's just me. I do not like to assume, and I don't want to assume that I know what you're talking about. All right, because sometimes you run on assumption and then you run into error. So
Mm.
what do you mean rape in marriage? Does that mean that your spouse, your husband or your wife forced you to have sex with them, or tied you down and had sex with you against your wish? Because sometimes what you call rape in some cases is just that is just a situation where someone is denying the other person sex deliberately because they're using it as a punitive measure. And the other person also has come to a point where they think, no, I can't take this anymore. And especially sometimes for us believers, we think, after all, he can't go get it outside. After all, she can't go get it from someone else. They are Christians. We think that they are stuck with us, and we use that to punish them. And then at the end of the day, then somebody now says, no, I can't take this anymore. And please don't get me wrong. I am in no way an advocate of violence at all. And I'm not saying that someone should be forced against their will. Please don't get me wrong. But I'm also saying let's balance things out. Since I do not know the details, I do not know I do not have context in this regard. That's why I'm speaking this way. But if that is happening, find out what's the issue. Why are you having issues? Why are you finding it difficult to be, to warm up to your partner sexually in marriage? Deal with the problem from the root instead of using sex as a bargaining chip or as a tool to punish the other person. So under no circumstance should anyone be forced against their will anyway. But at the same time, let's also look at it this way. If someone is denying the other person, so what should they do? So I would advocate that you seek help and get to the root of the problem so that this doesn't happen again.
And let me add voice to that question, because sometimes the African culture makes it normal because they say it's his body, so why shouldn't he take it by force? Okay, so sometimes they say, it's his body, let him. So if you withhold it, he has the power to maneuver you and rape. And rape, really, if you define it, means without consent. So we can't really use Christianity to cover up the legal part of it. If you do not have consent, whether you are married or not, it is something that, so it's one area that really I would love you to expand a lot, but time has just run out on us.
I understand what you're saying. I get that. And I've also said that under no circumstance should someone be forced against their will. Mm-hmm. Definitely, that's the truth. But please let us be objective.
Yes.
If someone is consistently for extended periods of time withholding sex from their partner, that is also wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. You can't correct a negative action with a negative reaction.
Sorry, Ma, I need to.
So get to the root of the problem.
There are two quick questions I want you to touch before we close out.
Okay.
One person says, so you answer it together. And then I'm really sorry, guys. We really have to end at 4. The first question says, what do you do if you start losing feelings for your partner?
Okay.
And then secondly, how do you handle an expectation that has been voiced out, but it's not practical for the other spouse to do? How can this be resolved? Let me expand on this. Sometimes we have this Proverb 31 that we throw in the face of our wives. Go and look at Proverb 31, wife. You go and listen to Mommy Apamboye. She has spoken on what women should do. And this one is throwing Ephesians chapter 5 to the man. This is what a man should do. So if you have voiced it, and this is not happening. So what point do you now build the bridge? I'm really sorry, but this may be our last question. Oh God.
Okay, the issue of feelings. Look, what happens, what disturbs your feelings is your perspective. The interpretation you assign to what happens to you is what influences your feelings most times. Your perspective and the kind of interpretation that you assign to what's going on, that's what influences your feelings. If you shift in your mind and assign a different interpretation to what's happening, then your feelings will also change and follow suit. But that's not to say that there are no genuine problems. When there are problems, deal with the problems. The other question talked about what the second one that the second question.
When they're always voicing and it's something they really is not practical.
Okay, that's the thing. So listen, I talked about the whether the thing is realistic or not, or whether it's workable or not, what you're demanding from them. Is it realistic? And then in some cases, do they have the capacity to even meet that? Is it a minor thing that can be overlooked? And then is this something that you can also accommodate for a while, knowing that with time people do get better? When the entire dynamic of the relationship improves, things also tend to improve over time. So sometimes you need to be patient. Sometimes you need to take the lead and be the example that you want the other person to be. Take the lead, bring in the light instead of attacking the darkness. You be the light, bring in the light and take the lead. So sometimes that's it. I don't have context, so it's difficult to really just go in depth when it comes to some of
Thank you
these
so much,
questions.
ma'am. Really grateful. I don't know how to thank you enough for this. It's like that's why I wanted you. I was a bit funny when I said we're going to have more time for Q&A than your expose, but I think this is the time to cut it short. But I would end it like this: no matter what we have heard tonight, we have heard about our expectations versus our realities, what to really expect and how to manage these expectations. But at the same time, where you draw, if you look at when she was talking, she talked about where you draw your inspiration from. If you draw inspiration from social media, you draw inspiration from superstars, you will get it wrong. Our
Mm,
expectation is from the Bible, is from God. What has God said about this,
mm,
about your marriage?
mm,
What does God
mm,
expect of me? If we look at
mm,
it from this perspective at all times, to say it's like what she talked about, expectation that your marriage, that your husband, your spouse is going to make you happy. It's an unrealistic
mm,
expectation.
mm,
God is the anchor of your marriage. Once you are, I'm not saying there's a balance. If I watch some of the skits by the Winlows, you see, I watched one recently when they were talking about the wife that is always very prayerful, and then she's abdicating the part about the bedroom. you know we have to build a balance in this so that we're
mm.
able to make our marriage the envy and celebrating that idea. So on this note, we just want to thank you. We have had a lot of questions, and but I would rather that you contact her contact. She's everywhere. She's everywhere. If you look at the flyer, you will see that she's on Before and Beyond. She's a super counselor, and she can take all your questions. So you can keep this chat room is still going to be active even after the meeting has ended. So you can still post your questions, and then she can answer after the meeting. Ma, if we can crave your indulgence to please look at the chat room and kind of post the answers if you can. And on this note, one just want to say thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for turning up. Thank you, Ma, very much. We really appreciate you for for giving us this time, to have this time of fellowship with you and giving us these nuggets. I have learned a lot. I have asterisked a lot of notes that will help me as a person as well, and I hope you did too. So on this note, we just want to say thank you very much, Ma. We're really grateful, and thank you everyone for turning up.
I
We're going
just
to have
shared my Instagram handle.
good, good, Ma.
Yes.
Good, Ma. That's very good. Okay. And I had said if you want to have the recording, please just post your email there, and then we can send you the recording after that. Thank you so much, everyone, and God bless you.